Hey all, I've been asked many, many times, I kid you not, about how I tune my kit. I have had more compliments about how my drums sound live, and I gear them really for a live type tuning because tuning in the studio is completely different, let's face it. Live, you need, to my mind, more of a presence. Studio, the engineers love separation, 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 separation. And definitive pitch and a whole host of other things that live, a lot of times, especially when you're playing with a really loud, kind of raucous kind of band, you need some blend in it. So I'm going to go over this little exercise in this first part, the first video, about tuning tom-toms and how I go about tuning my tom-toms. Simply because the questions of like, well, my drum doesn't sound like that, or what are you doing special, always comes up. And I'm not doing any kind of like mystic thing, and it kind of was, well, I'll give you an example. I was playing with a group called the Second Coming Band, and I just started with them. And I was kind of green. I mean, I had played in dance bands before, but I was kind of green, and I wasn't familiar with, playing out live as far as that size band and that loud a band, because we had a full PA, we were fully mic'd up and things like that. And I was always doing the sparing thing of being partially mic'd up because we were playing smaller clubs and whatnot. Well, I had, and some of you have seen, a really big blonde set of Tama drums, which were very, very good drums. They were the Superstar Maples. And I had a buddy of mine come out, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give him credit here, a guy named Buzzy London, who played in my area, who was like one of the top flight drummers out. And he said to me, he said, Carmine, man, you got a beautiful kit. It sounds like crap. I said, what? He said, it's like dead. He said, you got everything muffled out so much that it really doesn't let the drums sing at all. And he said, really, in a live situation, you need presence, because not only are you on stage, but every other loud instrument on stage is right there with you. They're not secluded off in some kind of mic'd up room or phased out room or anything like that. They're standing right next to you. I had things like Leslie tone cabinets and Ampeg SVTs and acoustic amps sitting right next to me that I had to kind of compete with. And it wasn't just competing with volume, it was competing with sound and tonality to add something of a presence to the band. So he said to me, I'm going to show you how I tune. Now, the thing that he started off with me was that he said, I get all my pitch of the drum from the bottom head and not the top head. Most people crank up the top head and do what they want to with it. He said, no. He says, I start the tone off with the bottom head. You get your bottom head to resonate, and you put your top head up to feel and taste. And I went like, well, that's different, because I hadn't heard anything about that. And I'm going to show you what he told me and how to do this particular drum. This is my practice kit. This is a set of Pearl exports, EX. These are actually, I think, poplar shells. So this is just for tom-toms. And I will tell you that I usually start with the largest drum first, because the largest drum is going to give you the lowest pitch. And what you have to be concerned with is that the lowest pitch of that drum isn't below where the drum can sing. So many of us tune a tom-tom head really kind of flappy, and you hear this real big thump, thump coming out of it, but you don't hear that the way a low drum should sound. And that's because we end up tuning it too low for the lowest resonant pitch of the drum. And being that the lowest drum is where you want to be, depending on the amount of drums that you have, you're supposed to emulate a full instrument. Okay? You're supposed to emulate an instrument that goes just like a piano from the low scales all the way up to the high notes. Well, if you tune all your drums low, then it kind of comes off like every time you do a fill or anything like that, it kind of sounds like mud, because it's like, and they're not spaced out far enough. So depending on how many toms you have, my rule of thumb has been, if you have 2 rack toms and a floor tom, you set them up and tune them in probably perfect fifths. And if anyone doesn't know what a perfect fifth is, if you can remember the old Wizard of Oz theme, whoa, that's a perfect fifth. So you find your lowest pitch and go up a fifth to each drum. So on this 4-piece kit, I actually found my pitch. I would go up a fifth from there on my next largest tom, and then up a fifth from there on this. I take my resonant head, and it's usually, for me, the resonant head is a thinner head, like an ambassador, a 1-ply head, because I like not only for the drum to resonate, but I want the head to resonate as well. Set it over here. I'm going to spin this around a little bit so that you can see as I put the bottom head on. Now, in this particular time, I have a head that's already been broken in. I actually take the head, once I get it pretty much right out of the box, and I'll take it and put it on the drum, but then begin to break it in. And by breaking it in means I'm going to really kind of crank it down just so I can get the head to stretch a little. Okay? And what I'm going to do here is I tune every lug finger tight only. And I do it usually on opposite sides or as close to opposite sides as possible. I screw them down just finger tight. Then, as I get them all finger tight, and it's going to change, I can tell you that. It's going to change as I'm getting them all finger tight. Because when I start to pull one side of the head down, it's going to slack some of the lugs, and it's actually going to start tightening some of the lugs. So I should lubricate these lugs a little bit so that they slide a little bit more. But for now, I'm just going to do this. There we go. Just finger tight. Remember, this is the bottom head, not the top. I'm not going for pitch on the top. Finger tight, and I've got them all the way around. Now, I do what I call a tap tight. I take the key and I tap on it to where I cannot move the key any longer. Some of these won't require very much. Some will require more. Remember, this is already a head that's been broken in, so I'm not wrenching it down to actually break the to break down the collar and have it stretch the head out. This has already been done with that. So I do a tap tight. And from there, I do it in very small turns. Because the bottom head, even when you break a top head, the bottom head's not going to change pitch much because that's going to be set and you're going to try to lock in the pitch as we're going along. First off, let me take the snares off. And right now, as you can hear, not much there. I then go through and do half a turn for each lug. Going in the star pattern that your elementary 101 pitch actually comes out. So now I've got the drum ringing a little bit, but is not going to be high enough for me. So I'm trying to go from here. I'm singing for that. So I've got to go up some more. And there is always, and now I go in quarter turn increments to get it up. And there's going to be pitches, Bob Gatson once said there's going to be pitches that the actual drum resonates to. You'll be able to hear it. All of a sudden the drum will come alive. We're getting there. Now I've choked the sound. And that, all of a sudden the ring is going. So we're going to bring it back down. Still a little bit much. Because I want a nice resonant tone. I want that drum to sing out as much as I can. I'm getting there, and what I'm hearing, I've got nice resonance. So now I want to get it up to bring it into pitch. Once I get it here, I've got the pitch that I want. Now I've got to make sure each lug is correct. So I'll actually put it down and listen for overtones. Here's the pitch. Now I'm bringing them all up. Always, when you're tuning, go down below the pitch that you want and gently, ever so slightly, move up. So now, I've got a nice round tone coming out. Now it's time to put on the top head. What Buzzy taught me was that it needs not necessarily the same pitch. What would be good for playing out live is a little oscillation along with it. Now what that means is instead of the pitch just going boom, boom, he said to me, place a little oscillation in there by turning the actual head maybe a quarter turn up above the pitch so that it actually scoops down when you play it. And by that I mean you'll actually hear the sound go doom as opposed to just doom. You know, it's like boom. Only you don't want to make it sound like a disco kind of scoop, you know, down. You just want to make sure that it basically gives a little bit of a scoop down, a little bit of oscillation to give you some nice fullness in the drum. And what I'm going to do, as I can see, I'm finger tightening these. What I'm going to do is I'll actually mount it so I can get a little bit easier to get pitch of. I'm finger tightening these. Try to get my pitch. First I do the tap test. To where they do not move anymore. And then a half turn on each key to start bringing the head up. And once again, these heads are broken in already. And all of a sudden, I'm really kind of close to where I want to be. Can you hear it goes boom, boom? And what I'm doing is I'm getting my pitch out of the bottom, but now I want to get I've got my fullness with my oscillation. I want to get every lug to sound. Remember, go down to the pitch and come up. And I have to tell you, what I've got is a nice round tone that has come out of it, and you can hear the drums sing as I'm coming up. Now let's see. And I hope you can hear this. I'm going to actually bring the mic a little bit over here so that you can hear the oscillation that I'm talking about when I'm playing. Here's my tom here. You hear that woo, woo, woo coming out. That little bit of downward oscillation, it goes high when it actually attacks and then scoops down. That actual little bit of oscillation is what helps that drum resound a little bit more. And it gives me the fuller sound that I have when I'm playing. And as I'm playing here, I think this will give you a taste of what's happening. Oop, let's try to put on the snare. Gotta make sure to do that. There's my low pitch here. And you can hear it's going boom, boom. And if your snares rattle a little bit, you can even boost up the pitch a little bit, stop the snare rattle. You can tighten the snare up a little bit to actually get rid of that sympathetic vibration. But this is how he ended up teaching me how to tune live. And I get that nice, and if you notice, take this off. If you notice, there's not much separate. There's pitch difference, but not much separation. And nice, all around round. Listen how nice those drums are actually ringing and coming out on a pitch. So that's my take on tuning. To actually tune the bottom head to the pitch that you want, start with your lowest drum first. Get the pitch that you want. If you have a limited number of drums, go up like this, a fifth from each other. And then if you had more drums, I usually use a fourth. I used to at one time had an octoplus and I was tuning fourths, and man, my high drums were like up like bongos. But it gives you that when you do that. You want to try to create a full spectrum of drum sound. So spread the drums out, not physically, but spread them out pitch-wise to make sure it's nice and round. I tune, like I said, from the bottom head, I get my pitch. I tap each lug to make sure that it's finger tight, and then gradually build it up to where I hear the drum, the bottom head, start to ring and make the drum resonate. Then I put the top head on, bring it up close to what I need to as far as pitch, but then go up a little bit so that I get that little downward slope oscillation to give you that nice sound for playing out live. For my take on things, this type tuning live really is what makes the drums sound really big and full. Granted, they're going to be different type heads that you use, some that are double ply to muffle it down a little bit, make it a little bit less crisp. I've been using the ambassadors on the top and bottom now for years, and I seem to like the sound that it gives me from there. And if you notice, I'm not using on the toms, I'm not really using a moon gel or any type of muffling because I like these drums to sing out. And try this. Instead of making them sound like cardboard, like from the 70s, try to make them really resound with a big spread, and I think you'll have a better time playing live.